couple of years ago, a report was published in a prestigious heart medical journal suggesting that the real reason that eating meat causes or promotes cardiovascular disease was not because of the saturated fat content of meat, but rather because of a up to then obscure element found in, not really found in meat, but the precursors or the starting substances for this particular substance was found in meat, and because of that, that was the real reason why meat could stimulate or promoted cardiovascular disease. Now, what was this mysterious element? Well, the mysterious element is called TMAO, which stands for trimethylamine N oxide. Now, why is TMAO associated with meat? According to this original or seminal article, which implicated TMAO in causing atherosclerosis, which is a precursor for cardiovascular disease, TMAO is the reason why it was associated was because the precursor for TMAO was two nutrients basically. One of them was called carnitine, and the other one is choline. Now, carnitine and choline, as anyone who's been involved in bodybuilding or fitness knows, are considered rather important nutrients. Both of them are associated with fat oxidation. Carnitine, in fact, is produced in the body from amino acids, and it's essential for fat oxidation. You literally cannot burn fat without carnitine, because carnitine, along with a certain enzyme, transports short-chain fatty acids into the mitochondria portion of cells where fat is burned in a process or oxidized in a process called beta oxidation. Now, as far as choline goes, choline has been considered what they call a lipotrophic substance. In the 60s and 70s, choline supplements were very popular among bodybuilders because of the idea that it helped to burn fat. In fact, choline was never a fat burner. It's a fat transporter. It's needed in the liver to produce proteins which transport fat in the blood. The only way to actually oxidize or burn fat is through activity that involves increased oxygen intake, such as aerobic exercise. But choline is important. It's again kind of like borderline essential. It's now being considered more essential than it was in the past because choline is a major contributor to what they call methyl donors. Without getting into biochemistry, methyl donors are important to prevent the buildup of or accumulation of excessive fat in the liver. This is called fatty liver. There's two types. One is caused by excessive alcohol intake. The other has nothing to do with alcohol. It's called non-alcoholic fatty liver. And it's epidemic now. It's a precursor for both liver cirrhosis and possible liver cancer and liver failure. And one of the reasons why the fat can build up in the liver is because of lack of methyl donors. In fact, a deficiency of choline causes an accumulation of fat in the liver. So choline and carnitine are very important for health. They're both produced in the body from other amino acids, but they're also found in protein foods. Eggs, for example, egg yolks are a very rich source of choline, very assimilable choline. Probably the best natural source of choline is eggs, other than lecithin. And carnitine, as I said, is found in a number of foods, particularly red meat. In that original report implicating TMAO as a cause of cardiovascular disease, meat was implicated because it's rich in carnitine. And the doctors who wrote that original study went so far as to, are you ready for this? They suggested that not only should people stop eating meat completely, but they should also completely avoid carnitine supplements. And subsequently, they came out with other studies implicating choline also, and even lecithin, because these are all precursors for the production of TMAO. Now, what happens is when you consume these nutritional precursors, they travel to the liver, and there's certain enzymes in the liver which what happens is let me backtrack. When you when you consume foods that contain choline and carnitine, they one of the byproducts of their breakdown is something called TMA, TMA, right? Now the TMA is in the liver through certain enzymes called FMOs is converted into TMAO, and the conversion is completed by gut bacteria. Certain gut bacteria complete the conversion of nutrients like choline and carnitine into TMAO. See what I'm saying? So that's the pathway. But the TMA is generated by gut bacteria when they metabolize choline, lecithin, and L-carnitine. Oh, I'm sorry, I got it backwards. It's actually the TMA is produced originally by the gut bacteria rather than the liver. When you consume choline, lecithin, carnitine, the TMA is produced from those nutrients by the gut bacteria, and then the TMA is transferred through the bloodstream to the liver, where it becomes oxidized into TMAO by this enzyme called FMO3. So the foods that can increase TMO are choline itself, lecithin, carnitine, and foods that contain those nutrients: red meat, eggs, and even fish. Now, the fish thing is kind of controversial because fish has long been associated with a lowered risk for cardiovascular disease. There's factors in fish that offer cardiovascular protection, including the amino acid taurine, fish is very rich in taurine, probably the best natural source, and also because the fish contains, especially fatty fish like mackerel, halibut, salmon, contain omega-3 fatty acids, which also have a beneficial effect on cardiovascular health. But it turns out that fish naturally contains 6 times more TMAO than meat. So these doctors who said that meat causes heart disease or cardiovascular disease because of the TMAO content completely failed to mention the natural TMAO content of fish, which is very curious why they didn't mention that. So as far as what's the evidence that TMO is associated with heart disease, a meta-analysis of 19 studies that featured 20,000 people showed that high TMAO levels were associated with increased rates of cardiovascular disease, including heart failure and stroke. People consuming higher levels of TMA precursors like carnitine and choline were 1.4 times more likely to suffer from heart failure, stroke, or other heart disease. Another meta-analysis, that's a meta-analysis accumulation of past studies. This meta-analysis of 11 studies that included 7,700 subjects found that those with elevated levels of oxidized TMA or TMAO had a 23% higher risk of heart disease and 55% higher risk of dying from any cause. Another study of 81,000 women and 39,000 men found that a higher intake of phosphatidylcholine, better known as lecithin, also resulted in a higher all-cause death, especially among diabetics. However, it turns out that high TMA levels are also associated with blood clots, heart attack, and stroke in over 4,000 people. That's what another study showed. So that seems to be pretty good evidence. But it turns out that vegetarians, they have a different type of gut bacteria. And it turns out that the gut bacteria in vegetarians, especially vegans who only eat fruits and vegetables, the bacteria they have, intestinal bacteria, is not efficient at producing TMA. So they have less risk of problems, health problems related to TMAO because of their varying, let's say, populations of intestinal bacteria. Rat studies show that TMAO increases with age and causes oxidative stress and inflammation in blood vessels. A recent study showed that that TMAO is also associated with increased cellular senescence, which would mean that it speeds the aging process also. All this sounds very bad, I admit. High levels of TMAO were associated with increased carotid intima media thickness. That means the thickness of the carotid artery, which is an early marker for atherosclerosis. In 220 people, irrespective of any other factor, including insulin resistance, obesity, and fatty liver. As far as diabetes, that's another issue related to TMAO. 2 studies on almost 3,000 people showed that high TMA levels were associated with increased rates of type 2 diabetes. Of 191 heart disease patients, those with high TMAO were more likely to have diabetes. TMAO decreased glucose tolerance, increased insulin levels and insulin resistance, and increased inflammation in mice on a high-fat diet. Now, animal studies, I've said this many times in the past, I'll say it again, animal studies are not always applicable to human physiology. So you have to take the animal studies with a literal grain of salt. What happens in a rat or a mouse may not happen in a human. Other studies show that TMAO can affect kidney function. Chronic kidney disease patients had higher TMAO levels compared to controls in a study of 521 patients and 3,166 controls. In 179 chronic kidney disease patients, high TMA was associated with faulty kidney function, and chronic inflammation, and increased mortality. High levels of the compound were associated with worse kidney function and advanced chronic kidney disease. In animals, high dietary TMO or choline levels cause kidney damage and dysfunction. TMO is also associated with inflammation. As I said in past videos, systemic inflammation or inflammation throughout the body, you don't feel it, it's silent, but it's the cornerstone of many, many diseases, including cardiovascular disease and brain degeneration. Higher TMA levels are associated with a higher release of what they call inflammatory cytokines, which are immune proteins, which are the cause of systemic inflammation. Cancer. TMAO contributes to the production of N-nitroso compounds, which can cause DNA damage and cancer. A study of 1,670 women showed there was a link between higher TMAO and colon cancer. Higher levels of choline, which is a precursor for TMAO, were associated with 2.5 times greater incidence of colon cancer. There's a relation between TMO. TMO is also associated with elevated rates of aggressive prostate cancer in 200 prostate cancer patients. As far as liver dysfunction goes, in a study of over 1,600 adults, higher TMAO levels were associated with more severe liver damage and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Obesity, higher levels of the FMO3 enzyme that's responsible for producing TMAO was associated with higher body mass, meaning that the higher the level of obesity or level of body fat, the greater the activity of the enzyme that produces TMAO in the body. And if you block that particular enzyme, in mice, they don't even become fat. Now, what are as I said, the foods or factors that increase TMAO include animal foods. Unfortunately, some of the best protein foods: eggs, red meat, dairy products, and fish. They're all rich in choline, carnitine, and lecithin, and then they get converted to TMAO by the gut bacteria. In 40 healthy young men, fish consumption increased TMA levels more than beef or eggs. However, this response correlated with the presence of specific gut microbes that are found in people with supposedly less healthy gut bacteria. Fish protein increased TMAO in mice more than any other protein source. In rats, a beef diet increases TMAO levels more than chicken. Eggs, and especially egg yolks, are rich in choline. Eating more than 2 eggs per day increased TMAO levels in 6 healthy volunteers. Dairy consumption was associated with higher TMAO levels in 271 adults. But another study of 38 overweight or obese women showed increased consumption of dairy resulted in lower TMA levels. So, high-fat diet increased TMA levels. Of course, carnitine supplements. Sleep deprivation increased TMA levels. Women who are pregnant show increased TMAO levels. Certain pollutants cause the increase of TMAO levels by increasing the enzyme that produces it. Well, now, what lowers TMAO levels? Okay, vegetarian, vegan, Mediterranean diet. Among 74 subjects given L-carnitine, meat eaters had greater increases in TMAO levels compared to vegans or vegetarians. Again, it's because of the differing bacteria that's found in vegans and vegetarians. Vitamins D and the B complex lower TMAO levels. That's a study of 52 adults showed that. Pistachio nuts, for some reason, decreases TMAO, and this was shown in 39 pre-diabetic subjects. Brussels sprouts decrease the activity of the enzyme that produces TMAO in 10 healthy volunteers. So eating Brussels sprouts will lower TMAO. Any kind of prebiotic and bacteria will also lower TMAO production. Soluble dietary fiber reduced TMAO by 60% in mice eating red meat. So if you take in soluble fiber, such as found in vegetables, fruits, oatmeal, it'll go a long way towards controlling TMAO, and probably explains why all these people that are eating meat and these protein foods aren't dropping dead of cardiovascular disease, cancer, and all the diseases I mentioned, because they're eating foods and that actually short circuit the production of TMAO. In other words, they're neutralizing the effect of eating stuff like choline and carnitine. Resveratrol, which is a popular supplement found in grapes and red wine, it decreases blood TMAO levels. A similar substance to resveratrol called transtilbene, I believe it's called transtilbene. I believe it's called transtilbene. Completely eradicates. It alters the bacteria. Transtilbene completely alters the bacteria that produces TMAO, so it neutralizes it completely. You can get transtilbene is found in supplemental form. There's stuff called meldonium, which made the news because a couple of athletes got busted on in drug tests because supposedly it increases cardiovascular power, and it was supposedly banned for athletic competition, but it does increase blood flow and oxygen. And it also seems to decrease blood TMAO levels by stimulating the elimination of TMAO from the body. What else could I say? I think that's about it, really, what I'm going to talk about TMAO. I've written about TMAO extensively in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. Also, I should mention garlic, either fresh garlic or garlic aged garlic supplements also neutralize the effects of TMAO. So again, if you're eating these other foods, I wouldn't worry about this TMAO. It sounds very bad, the studies that I mentioned, as far as causing all these various health problems. But again, most people eat a lot of the foods I mentioned, soluble fiber, they eat fruits and vegetables that contain these nutrients. And if you do that, TMAO is not going to be a problem. And the proof of that is that there was a study I just saw the other day. They studied groups of women for 10 years to see what effect TMAO had on cardiovascular disease outcome. And this is over a 10-year period, a decade. And what they found is no effect whatsoever. TMAO had no effect on increasing the progression of cardiovascular disease or atherosclerosis. And the reason is very simple. The women consumed these other foods that basically neutralize TMAO effects in the body. And by the way, exercise itself lowers TMAO. So even if you just exercise, it'll go a long way towards preventing problems with TMAO. Now, there's always this is a big topic in medicine, TMAO, and there's always new information coming out about it. And as this new information comes out, I will write about it in my Applied Metabolics publication. I've already had, I think, 1 or 2 articles about TMAO where I explained a lot of the nuances, some of the stuff that's in this video, plus other material about TMAO that I didn't include in this video because it would take too long, are in those articles. I also, in my Applied Metabolics, I cover all aspects of nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, effective fat loss techniques, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't, women's health and fitness, and many more topics. I cover more topics than any other digital publication. And unlike these other digital publications, and I'm not saying they're bad, there's a couple of them that are kind of like specialize in nutrition, others specialize in exercise, and the people that write them are very educated, or they have advanced degrees. Unfortunately, they're not writers. Their writing is absolutely awful. If I were grading them, I would have to give them an F, because they write in a very passive style. They write in medical journal style. It's very hard to understand if you don't have a medical degree or scientific degree and or science degree. Applied Metabolics is written in plain English. It's understandable to anyone who got as far as the 6th grade. I've been writing for over 45 years, so I know how to write for the public. It's 30 to 45 pages every month, solid evidence-based information, and if I say so myself, the information contained in Applied Metabolics is better than anything that you'll find on the internet, anywhere, in any blog, in any video, and it's all evidence-based, 100% truth. There's no lies in Applied Metabolic. If you want no bull information, subscribe today at www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, send me an email. I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolic Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise, science, and general health and medicine. I also have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics webpage, where current subscribers only can send me short questions about anything they might have read in Applied Metabolics, or anything related to nutrition and exercise that comes to mind that they want to ask me about. As long as they're short questions, I will answer them. I answer these questions to subscribers in appreciation for their subscription. So this service, if you want to call it that, is limited only to current subscribers. You're welcome to leave comments under these videos about possible future topics that I will cover if I feel that they appeal to a large number of people. I don't cover crazy or, I've had people ask me to do articles on urine therapy. Videos on urine therapy. Real weird stuff. I'm not going to talk about that stuff. First of all, there's not a lot of scientific background. I don't like to do videos on topics that don't have a lot of evidence. I don't like to do hypothetical. I won't do videos on animal studies, that kind of thing. I need to do my videos. I want them to focus on evidence-based truth, as proven by scientific evidence. So what else can I say? If you think my videos are any good or of value, please let others know about my channel, so I could get a couple of more subscribers. And who knows, if I get enough subscribers, maybe I'll be able to start putting stuff in, like the cartoons and all that fancy graphics that you see in other videos. Right now, I just can't. I don't have the ability to do that. But what I am giving you is hard, absolute truth information, which is, to me, more important than a couple of cute cartoons and graphics. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. Thank you for listening.